Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We're here today with
Arib Siddiqui.
Omar Shaikh.
and I'm from IHSAAN. I'm Samir.
I'm the Head of Finance at Middle East.
And today, hopefully, we're going to find out how to make money in the Middle East, and how to make money ethically, inshallah, and maybe gain some insights how to be a leader in your field. So let's start.
Yeah, so essentially we'll be exploring what Islamic finance is in practice, how it's evolving in the Middle East specifically, and what opportunities exist for young people in values-based investing. So I think to begin, for those less familiar, for whichever one of you guys wants to start, what would you guys explain Islamic finance to be in clear and simple terms?
I used to describe this really differently, but I had a conversation with someone who really changed my outlook on this. When Islam first came, was it for Muslims or for non-Muslims? It was non-Muslims. By default, there were no Muslims when Islam first came. By that same token, Islamic finance, who often people say, it's an interest-free form of finance for Muslims so that we can buy homes, we can make money. Really, if you really, really, truly believe in this, it is a fairer form of finance, which can replace the existing system that we have for the benefit. I think that's just like the one-liner. I don't know, Omar, you probably want to.
No, it's perfect. Spot on. Faith-based form of finance, as you know. If you guys were working in a bank, I would describe it as an Islamic finance with two lenses: ethical finance and a structured product. But we'll come on to that later on.
Sure.
So that's the hook. That's what you're going to hear a bit more about today. Now can we have just a bit more of an introduction from both of you, and then we can begin. So whoever wants to go first. What you do, background.
Sure.
What are you doing right now?
Okay, so my name's Omar Shaikh. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Should I start with that? A real pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you amazing students, and thank you, Salman, and thank you, Hassan, as well for organizing this. Never knew the forces connection, but that was really nice to hear. Very simply, I've been in financial services last 25 years. I graduated and started my career, trained with EY, became an accountant, worked a decade there. During my time, I moved to Bahrain to specialize in Islamic finance 20 years ago, actually, even though I only look 25, is that right? Well, the Scala caller isn't working, but that's another story. I specialized in Islamic finance, came back to London, worked in the private equity team, and then headed up the Islamic finance offering for EY in London. After 10 years at EY, I quit. In the last 15 years, I have been working in the space of advocacy with the UN, with government agencies, with financial institutions, with two hats. Firstly, my current day job is with the Global Ethical Finance Initiative, which is a mainstream body headquartered in Edinburgh, where we try to promote finance with positive change. So working with mainstream conventional finance in the world of sustainability, green finance, everything associated with that. And also I sit on the board and as a director of the UK Islamic Finance Council. So we're doing a lot of work to help promote Islamic finance globally as well, to build out ecosystems, to advance the industry in the areas of sustainability, Sharia assurance, and for the last few years working with the government on Islamic student finance as well, which I know is an area of interest to many of you.
Cool. So my career is far less illustrious, but I'll try and big it up. My name is Arib Siddiqui. I'm the founder and the CEO of Kestrel. We're a fintech on a mission to help 100 million Muslims to bank without compromise. I started it 5 years ago. My background before that was in management consulting. I did my graduate scheme at Deloitte. I then did a stint at a boutique consultancy called Alpha. I then went to PwC, where I was part of the wealth management tech team. And basically, I always felt like there was something wrong. I felt like I was helping large banks and wealth managers to digitally transform, create products that I couldn't use, my family couldn't use, my community couldn't really use. And I had this idea of what Islamic finance was, that it was avoiding interest, but I didn't really know much beyond that. Just as a Muslim working in the city, I felt like I was living this dual life where I was making money, but feeling really guilty about how it was being made. I went off to do an MBA at the University of Cambridge, and it was there I met a brother from Malaysia who became my co-founder. And he used to laugh at us because on the Muslims on the course, because we would be finding a place to pray or finding halal food, but we'd be spending with Barclays or HSBC to buy lunches. And he said, why aren't you using Islamic banks? And that's where the penny dropped, that maybe we could combine our experiences, his in Islamic banking in Malaysia and what he had seen, and mine in fintech in the UK, to try and do something about it. We started off as a personal finance app. We then began selling software to large Islamic banks in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia. And now we're partnering with a large Malaysian bank to launch a digital bank right here in the UK, across Europe and in North America as well, offering Sharia ethical products. So that's me.
Yeah, so just to start with Omar, you obviously hold some quite influential roles within the Global Ethical Finance Initiative and the UK Islamic Finance Council. Could you talk a little bit more about what they actually do and how they may intersect? And I know you talked about how the student loan Sharia compliance aspect of it all, which can be very relevant for everyone.
Yeah, what do they actually do? Yeah, my friends and my wife often ask me that question. What do you actually do? So look, it's how do I answer that? Someone, I mean, surely
Sure, you tell me.
It's all a one big blag, you know. Well, look, it's very simple. What we're trying to do is make finance work for positive change. We're ecosystem builders. What does that mean? We're not a bank. We don't sell products. We actually work with the banks. We work with the global agencies and the regulators to create ecosystems, to try and encourage financial institutions and finance to be used for positive change. So this could be through thought leadership, through advocacy, through technical guidance, through capacity building. In a few days, we'll be issuing a paper on tobacco versus coal in Brazil at COP, where the team is right now. Last week, we were in Dubai doing work on looking at carbon credits from a Sharia lens and green sukuk. So we launched an SDG fund with Aegon, the world's first fixed income sovereign SDG fund. So we work across the ecosystem. No bank, no financial institution, whether it's Islamic or otherwise, can operate without an enabling ecosystem. And we believe there's three components to that. Number one, the political will and the tone, the mood music. Number two, the very capacity building. You can't regulate, you can't deliver something you do not understand. You cannot have a fruitful journey in finance if you have got no base finance, if you have no education, if you have no qualifications. And number three, you need the products. You need the product providers like Kestrel and others to actually demonstrate it to them to produce the products which marry your principles, your faith with your economic and your financial needs.
And obviously, I mentioned towards the end of what I was saying that the UK IFC has been quite closely involved with the new Sharia compliant student loans. I was wondering whether you could give a little bit more insight into that and how that's structured, because myself included, we have a lot of skepticism as to what it actually means and how it can align with our faith.
What's your skepticism?
Skepticism in the sense that, how can you truly eliminate interest when you're talking about, putting in money and receiving it in a longer time period. So
It's for you.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, look, folks. Okay, I've been answering this question for nearly 20 years. Yep. So please bear with me if I try and get this. Just because something looks like it's interest does not make it interest. Okay, are we all happy with that? We know the verse in Quran, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they're going to say this is the same as riba, but it's not. It's trade, yeah? It's not.
Trade is different from interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it might look the same on the outside. So the simple analogy is, if you go to a KFC, which is halal, and a KFC, which is haram, right? Okay. One, they look the same, they taste the same, they do the same damage to your stomach, right? But one's halal and one's haram, right? Now you try to explain that to your non-Muslim friend. It is the exact same. You're just deceiving yourself. No, it's not the exact same. Why not? Because when we zibba the, and you're non-Muslim, what? But it looks the same, it tastes the same, it's the exact same calories. And you're going to end up in this confusion. So the first thing you have to realize is, even if it might look or appear the same, it does not mean that it is haram. Okay? Please get that at one core reference point when you're trying to understand Islamic finance. Otherwise, we'll continue with another generation of people who are bemused, confused, and totally lose heart in Islamic finance, which is not what I would like to see. I'd like to see you guys take this forward and make it better and make it bigger and for everyone in society. So that's the first thing. Now, when we change the structures, it does not mean that the net economics need to move. Yeah. Okay. So another analogy which Sheikh Nizam Yakubi gave me once, he said, if you have two people in a big park, at a carnival, one selling Guinness, one selling Pepsi. Yep. And the Pepsi decides to benchmark his price on the Guinness. Yep. Guinness is the drink of choice where I come from in Glasgow. No, the big Irish community there. So does that change by matching the pricing to the alcohol? Does that change the substance? Does it? Yes or no? Why not?
The substance remains the same.
Okay, so pricing, the economics of something, does that innately change the substance?
No.
So if the student loan is priced and the economics is X, and the Islamic version is also X, yeah, does that make the Islamic version change the substance of the Islamic version? Innately, no, right? So we need to, we need to dive deeper.
There's something I really want to add to that as well, which is a lot of skepticism in Islamic finance, I really feel, comes out of this pricing point. I really feel that if a home finance product, an Islamic home finance product, were cheaper or the same price, and they're often more expensive, no one would have the skepticism. They would just go for it. And we see that in the Islamic savings space today, where they often pay better returns than conventional accounts. So a lot of non-Muslims go for them as well. And I think this is a consequence of we've completely lost respect for Sharia scholars. A lot of us don't really know what it takes to be a Sharia scholar anymore, or what a Sharia stamp of approval really takes. We don't, I was guilty of that myself until I began to work with them directly and see what it actually takes. And, these are people who've learned at the feet of scholars, who ultimately it goes all the way back to who? To Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I think that's a really, really important thing. And when it comes to this product, the Sharia loans products for students, we have to think about what the impact is. One, there are loads of Muslims who don't go to university at all because of this. Loads of them. And this has been happening for decades. Two, this has been like a 15-year process. It was David Cameron in his time, 2010, that they said this was going to happen. And if people don't get behind this, because we've seen this in Islamic banking, we saw that in the investing space, where Muslims start to come after the product and say, I don't believe in this. We're not going to go for it. Genuinely, all that happens is we all look like idiots at a governmental level. It's like, and I've been in spaces where the people running Islamic banks are like, well, Muslims don't even get behind them. So why should I continue this? And it means we can't go from level 0 where we're at right now, where it's not perfect. We can't get to 1, 2, 3, 4, level 100, because that foundation was never properly contributed to or supported by the community.
How would you say we get to that foundation right now? It's not currently the same.
We're at that foundation.
So how do we
We're
build
there
the
now.
trust, say, where people will say, I don't trust this product? How do we demonstrate that and then get products like the student finance, perhaps your product, into the, say, wide stream finance world?
So look, I think that's a great question, and I think it's equally applicable across many other things in Muslim life today. The reality is sessions like this, the education, the awareness is critical in doing that. But also there's a realization, at least Department for Education have said very clearly, that it said that some Muslim students have a problem with the current structure. So we have to accept we're not homogeneous. We have to accept some people will do this, some people will do that. And I think there's just a respectful understanding of that, which is a healthy thing as well. So I think that's part of the thing. We're not all going to follow the same thing. We can't even follow the same day for Eid, right?
Yeah,
and that's surely that's looking up in the sky to spot,
I think, and it was Sheikh Mohammed Paracha he's the head of Islamic banking at Norton Rose, a legal firm, and he also runs an Islamic fintech, Nesta. He put it really interestingly, where he said he thinks the biggest mistake Islamic finance ever made was branding itself Islamic. Because in the Western world, you immediately alienate 95% of the population who are not Muslim. And then even Muslims come with a fair amount of skepticism because of previous scams, high profile things that went wrong. There was a recent pyramid scheme that was uncovered that branded itself Sharia as well. So I think the branding has to change.
Something like ethical.
Whether we call it ethical, maybe it's some fairer, maybe it's something like that. I think the branding is super important. The other thing is, okay, if it's going to be more expensive, it's going to be more expensive, but you can't compromise on the user experience. Why don't we have like a Revolut level type thing that is also Sharia compliant, right? And that was kind of why Kestrel started. Let's not compromise on the user experience, on the faith, on all these other aspects. Like you deserve the same experience that anyone else would get, but also feel like you're not compromising your faith.
Just building on that, do you foresee Kestrel being, say, the ethical or Islamic Revolut, or do you perhaps say we can be better, we can have these additional features?
I think we can be fair. I mean, the thing about like a Revolut is there's a few things about why they may or may not be quote unquote ethical, both in how they were established, but their internal culture, as well as how they're growing in the products that they offer. I certainly want the same, if not a better experience as a Revolut, but the products that we offer will be fundamentally different as well, allowing you to co-invest into property with your peers. A fairer form of insurance, for example, is something we could very easily offer, as well as passporting all of these products from Malaysia, Saudi, which are great and they work over there, but we just don't have them over here in the UK. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Question for both of you. What is one kind of product you see in, say, Malaysia, Saudi, Bahrain, where if implemented, say, in the UK right now, could make a great difference?
Well, so you have to realize the market in Malaysia, for example, and the GCC is considerably more progressed than the market here. So even today in the UK, you can't get asset financing. It's very difficult to get car financing. Islamic pensions aren't really there. So it's a world apart. So there's many products out there which you would say are phenomenal. Or just even some are just basic, kind of part of your natural
Insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have that at all.
We don't have them here at all. So there's just a standard financial products that you will need in your life cycle as a user. We don't have them. In terms of one which I thought was particularly interesting that we played a role in setting up many years ago in the UAE is something called national bonds. It's kind of the premium bonds equivalent, which is a great saving scheme, but Sharia compliant. But also you get these lovely prizes as well. So not quite national lottery, not to be confused with that, but it's there's an element of prizes in there as well. So I thought that was quite a funky product. But the other one, which I also think is excellent and amazing, and could be applied in the UK at the kind of payday lender equivalent or at that kind of market, was Quwwat in Lahore, which is a genuine interest-free microfinance service. So we might not have the same need of microfinance in this country as you have in Bangladesh or Pakistan or some of these other countries, but the principle of that product is absolutely fantastic. And there's an organization in Manchester called Ansar Finance who've done something similar. Seeing that scale across the UK would be fantastic.
Before we move on to your favorite product, for those here that don't know and watching, how would you say and describe, say, a national bond, say, a sentence?
Sharia compliant. So in Dubai, there's a national bonds structure. Basically, it's a collective investment scheme whereby everyone puts the money in the national bonds. They will invest the money, but everyone agrees that from the money that we invest, 80% will be distributed back to everyone in proportionate rate. But the other 20% will be given as prizes, right? So whoever's name comes out the hat, they can get a portion of prizes. So that's how national bonds in the UAE works. It's backed by the government as well. So it gives you that degree of security.
I noticed the banks in the Middle East, a lot of them operate a similar kind of, not lottery, but like a lottery system now with savings accounts like Emirates MBD, Abu Dhabi Islamic.
I wouldn't be surprised if they brought elements of that.
I think
the principle is the profit share, a portion of the profit share, everyone agrees to give out in that kind of format, but the vast majority of it is given out to everyone in a report.
How would you say then, before I move on to your product, we have this backing by the government, say in the Middle East kind of countries, say if we want to perform such ethical Islamic finance on a scale, say on the ground here in the UK, how do you provide that security which we fundamentally won't get by a government backed on?
So you need the government to engage. When I was saying earlier about ecosystem building, you need a proactive engagement by the government to make it successful. I spent nearly 4 years in Nigeria working with the government and the regulators there. We worked in Kenya, we worked in Maldives. Maldives was a great place to work, by the way. It's the first time I commuted to work on a speedboat. It was fantastic. But without that government support, you will not get the functioning market that you need. So you need to have that enabling regulatory.
And that's what we're really bad
environment.
at as a
Yeah.
community. Like right now, what's dominating the political space when it comes to finance and economics is like wealth redistribution, wealth taxes, that housing crises. Where our voices are not being heard at all at that level, and I think that's why organizations such as Omar's are so important.
Your favorite product?
My favorite product doesn't have to be mine, right?
But it is.
But it just has to be.
Mine. What's a product you've seen perhaps that you would want to say implement on Kestrel?
Look, insurance is something which is absolutely needed. We don't have anything from car insurance to life insurance. These types of products exist in Malaysia. They exist in Saudi. They exist in these other countries. We just don't have them here. I think the mistake being made is that we again, the marketing thing. Why market it as Islamic when it could benefit everyone in that way? So I think insurance is a clear one. There's a really cool product operated by good friends of mine over at FIDA, which is like a pure risk sharing home financing product, which is fantastic. It works like very interestingly. However, it needs more scale and it needs more backing. And I'd like to see more large banks beginning to collaborate and maybe roll out products like that.
Yeah, I think the FIDA product in the UK is one of the most innovative products that have come out in the last decade.
Well, I think one of the main sort of themes that I'm getting from you guys is the fact that there's so much more to be done, so much more sort of awareness to be raised and how we can more engage the government. And as young students, particularly at LSE or top universities, we often feel that we're more, doing it for our own careers and not the wider Muslim Ummah. So what tips would you give, the guys here today to commit themselves to strive to make that impact early on in their career? Because when you're young, you can do much more than you can later on.
I think some of you were at the talk. I was just sorry, I have gate crashed this. I was at the Muslim Careers Society talk and they just asked if I wanted to do that. But I always go back to the prayer of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Is anyone familiar with that? It's mentioned in the Quran. So he was obviously one of the most powerful rulers and kings within our religion. And when you look at what he used to pray for, it's very interesting. The translation is, "Oh Allah, please forgive me and grant me a kingdom so large it would be unbefitting for anyone who comes after me." Which seems really weird because it's a prophet and he's asking for something in this world. He's asking for dunya. But then when you look at it, he was given a very specific skill. His skill was governance and leadership. He could do anything. He could command the elements, the wind, the animals, the jinn. And he acknowledged that and he realized he had to use that to serve his ummah. Everyone in this room, every human being has a specific skill set. Whether it's by, you're a good public speaker, you're an operator, you're a tech person, you're finance, everyone has like a God-given talent. And you also have a lot of pull by the place you're sat in right now. LSE, a world-renowned brand. Why are you here? Yes, it can be for self-serving purposes. Yes, you could do really well. You can go and make a career for yourself as I have, Omar has, and that adds a lot of weight to you as an individual. But then what are you going to do with all of these logos and brands that you're amassing? And I think as Muslims, when you're looking at it from an Islamic lens, you owe it to yourself to figure out what you were put here to do. So that's a lot of inspiration for me.
For me, and it was lovely to sit downstairs for the last couple of hours because I got here a bit early, and to be back on a student campus. For me personally, Salman, it was the following. I was very fortunate to be part of the ISOC, with GUMSA, Glasgow University, and then part of Forces as well, Forces Scotland. And we were taught very simply, as it says in the Quran, you're created but to worship Allah. What I found really awkward was after I graduated, having a great time studying, but also with the ISOC, building some great friendships and learning a lot, that everyone just went into their careers. And by the way, when you graduate, see that career journey, that's it. There's no next phase. So do you remember there was primary school, high school, college, uni? When you graduate, it's unending. So I sit there and think, hold on a minute, what's going on here? The tarbiyah we were given was created but to worship Allah. Now all of a sudden everyone's busy in their day jobs, right? What's happened? How is this possible? So that was a moment of reflection for me. The other thing I learned very quickly was in our deen, it says, you know, if you give the son of Adam a mountain of gold, he'll just want another one. So everywhere I looked around me, everyone was just chasing, keeping up with the Joneses, chasing some more money, chasing some more money or more, you know, that. And there's no end to that. There's absolutely no end to that. Be warned, guys. If you're going to chase money, there's no end to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send you through the earth like wild wildebeest that's going left and right. Then I learned from elders, they said, chase two things. Number one, chase excellence and the money will chase you. Yeah. And number two, have the money in your hand, not in your heart. As we know about the hadith of Wahan in the state of the Ummah, can be exemplified in that one hadith. We have concepts, folks, of rizq. Your rizq is written, right? Before the earth was created, not before we were created. You have 50,000 plus years. So why are we stressing? What are we anxious about? Why are we running around like crazy trying to get the next, you know, dollar, right? You know, didn't add up to me. And the final thing was the concept of barakah. The concept of barakah. You guys are all LSE. Has anyone figured out how you put barakah into an Excel sheet? You know what the formula is? I don't. I'd love to learn from you guys, right?
1 minus 1 equals 3.
Yeah, exactly. It's system error. Exactly. It doesn't quite work in the logic that underpins the Excel sheet and the formula. So if you think about the bigger picture, chase excellence, work hard, be the best at what you can be. Your rizq is already written. You're created but to worship Allah. So use the skills, the talents, exactly as Arif was saying, that you have to serve a bigger cause, to serve a better cause. What you're going to get, you're going to get. No one can change that by a penny or a cent. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise. So that should give all of you guys a few things. Assurance, calmness, contentness, because the amount of anxiety out there because of money reasons is phenomenal. You should now have a modality that you should chase happiness and contentment, right? And you should have a purpose, yeah? But you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to use all that brain. You're going to have to nurture that. You're going to have to grow that. And you're going to have to strive with IHSAAN to be the best at whatever venture, whichever job, whichever career you go towards.
I'm just a bit curious because you guys obviously find yourselves in those corporate environments before you ended up doing what you guys have been doing. So did you guys have any like specific epiphanic moments where you realize this is not my calling, this is not what I've been put on this earth to do?
For me, it was a build-up. When I started at Deloitte, it was a community there were loads of Muslims at Deloitte. They have one of the largest Muslim networks in London. So I felt kind of at home, and that offset the work that I was doing. But when I moved to Alpha, it was like employee 101. Very different culture. You know, I would just pray in the stairwell, basically. No one knew what Jummah was, so I was trying to tell them, look, I can't turn up at this time on a Friday. And you know, they would just break out the alcohol at like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. nearly every day, which is, you know, that's their culture. That's how it works. In consulting, it's like that. In finance, well, especially in London, that's just the way it was. But it felt very weird. But the moment came for me was I was sent for a project to Edinburgh, and it was the height of summer.
Big drinking culture.
No, it wasn't just that. It was 2018. It was 2017. It was Ramadan.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we had it bad in London. It was like 19-hour fast, 18 hours. These guys were fasting for 22 hours. And I said to the partner, I said, do you mind if I work from London? He just didn't get it. He was like, why? I said, well, it's Ramadan, and it was between Scotland and the Netherlands. So a lot of traveling. And I didn't want to ruin my Ramadan. And, you know, basically after just speaking to him for about 20 minutes, nothing was going in. And I was like, okay, he doesn't, it's fine. We'll deal with it. It was really hard. And I remember I was working at the top of this beautiful building in London. It was midnight. I'd broken fast by myself with just some takeaway. I wanted to be at Tarawih with my family, and I'd missed it every day. This was like now the 10 final nights. I'd missed it every day. I thought, that's it. And the next day I went in and I said, I want to quit. And they said, no, you just go on secondment, figure something out. So I went off for a year, and that's when I decided to do the MBA, because someone told me you can reinvent yourself if you do an MBA. And that was kind of the epiphany moment. Me sat at midnight working on some spreadsheets for some stupid wealth manager that didn't care about us or our community anyway. Yeah.
What about you, Omar?
I actually don't think I had a particular moment per se. I was getting more exposed to Islamic finance as I was doing my CA training. I had to do the undergrad in accounting and finance. But it was actually the seeds that were planted during my university days with the ISOP of purpose, of how our living, our modality is, our thinking is about life. So I think it was those seeds that were planted. And then as I was just studying it, learning it, and learning off some family members and others here, it was my friends from uni who were doctors and dentists, and they said, you know, you spent all this time, and I reluctantly did this CA. I barely passed it. I was struggling because I hated it. You know, it wasn't really, actually, I shouldn't say this being recorded. Yeah, I'm a proud member of ICAS, sorry. But it was tough. It was challenging. And at the time, it was, you know, my friend said to me, well, you've now gone and qualified and you've done all it. And I obviously just had to do it being South Asian. Otherwise, your parents are going to really slap you around. What have you done, Sonny? You know, you haven't completed your education. So that was where my friend said, well, look, you spent all this time in finance. So you need the Muslims in finance to sort out or try and give us a, you know, build out Islamic finance. Not going to get the Muslims in medicine or dentistry or optometry to do that, right? So all of you in this room, because you're in London School of Economics, you're in that world of economics and finance, it's up to you to take on that responsibility to build out a fairer and more responsible form of capitalism or finance as well. So that's where you kind of realize, oh dear me, I'm stuck now with this. I wasn't a huge fan of finance. If you see the world of finance, it's very amorphous. Other friends were businessmen, they were traders, and you see that's a real, actual, real economy activity. And for many years, I struggled with that kind of, you know, the world of finance is just a bit somewhat random.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was a realization that you had a responsibility, and if you don't do it, who is going to do it, right? So then you lean in on that because it allows you to tie your day job all of a sudden with something that's purposeful and meaningful. If your niyat is correct, and the exact same for you when you're studying, if your niyat is correct, then inshallah, we hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will award, will acknowledge that award.
Ameen.
Yeah. Both of you in a previous answer mentioned God-given skills and God-given purpose. A lot of people here at university or at the beginning of their career, how does one go about finding their God-given skills, discovering that? Perhaps how did you do that? And then how can you use, I'd say, these skills and transfer that into fulfilling your purpose?
So I studied physics for undergrad, and that really made me realize two things about myself. I was really good at like the experimentation and getting my hands dirty and doing stuff in the lab, but I hated the write-ups, right? Doing the lab reports and things. When I went to Deloitte, I loved presenting and creating slides and pitching and that stuff, but I didn't like getting into the details. During my MBA, that really came to the fore as well, that I loved the like big picture stuff and the talking, but less so like the nitty gritty. And that's where I met my co-founder who loved doing that stuff and other talking. So yeah. So alhamdulillah. So I can't say there's like one thing, but you'll know and you'll have ideas. I will say one thing though. I learned more in the first year of running a startup, running my own business, than I did in the entire 7, 8 years of a career that I'd had before then. Easily. I think partly because there was so much more on the line, because it's your thing, right? And everyone knows it's your thing and you need to make it work. Secondly, because there's no one else to do anything else. You are doing the financial modeling, you are doing the pitching, you're doing, the operations, the behind the scenes, you're doing getting involved in the tech and the design, and you'll naturally figure out what that is. So entrepreneurship can be a trial by fire. And I think you don't have to quit your full-time job or quit uni to start doing something. I think that side hustle can really help you to figure out what it is you're good at. Yeah.
Look, I think I'd say three things. One is your niyat, your sincerity, understand your purpose of your creation and frame everything in that. Number two, I would say, is intellectual curiosity. Yeah, we're all students, but you've got to challenge conventional wisdom. You've got to challenge the orthodoxy, right? For me, it was fascinating that in the late 90s there was .com and .bomb. So what you see today in the AI boom, it's like, hold on, we had that in the .com boom. How is it a company can get a valuation overnight like this and then collapse? And then you had Enron, Parmalat, WorldCom, all these corporate scandals. And there was a company called Arthur Andersen. It was the biggest auditing firm in the world, and it collapsed right in front of us. And we were just graduates, just literally a couple of years in. We're thinking, everything you've taught us about auditing, who the hell's been auditing the auditors, right? How is this possible? All of this is pre-global financial crisis, by the way, and that's a whole nother story. So have that intellectual curiosity as to why does the system run the way it is, yeah? And what you're being taught, is that actually correct? Or is there bits they're teaching you and the bits they're not teaching you? So have the intellectual curiosity, let's say. And the third thing is hard work. You have to work hard for whatever you want to achieve. You have to chase excellence, but you have to work really, really hard. Weekends, evenings, whatever it takes, it takes. When I went 20 years ago, I seconded to EY Bahrain for one reason. No one goes to Bahrain from London unless you're retiring and you're going to get a big fat paycheck, right? The reason why I went, and I got a massive pay cut, for the record, and none of my friends believe me, even today, yeah, right, you went tax-free. The only reason why I went was Bahrain was like Palo Alto or Silicon Valley for Islamic finance. That's where it was booming. And by complete chance, or Dallas plan, EY had the leading consulting team, bigger than the McKinsey team, bigger than the BCG team, bigger than any Big Four kind of firm in Islamic finance. We had a dedicated 15-man roughly team building out, doing consulting and advisory in Islamic finance, setting up Islamic banks, converting conventional banks, doing strategy, policies, operating framework policies and procedures, all this good stuff. So I was very fortunate. So I seconded across effectively. I moved across there to learn. And I knew no one in Bahrain. I had no friends in Bahrain, believe it or not. We didn't have Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. So you couldn't even connect with anyone. So you just turned up, played football with your colleagues in the office, and you got to know people. But I was learning stuff, picking up stuff, trying to absorb as much as I can because I was there for a reason. So that would not have materialized if I was just chilling on the beach or chilling in the malls or whatever it is. So having a very strong work ethic is important.
Can I ask you, when I was at Deloitte and a lot of people wanted to go to Dubai and Bahrain and Riyadh, we were advised, don't go to the Middle East when you're young, unless you're prepared to stay there. Because the money's too good, and if you try and come back to the UK, it's never going to be as good, and you get stuck in that lifestyle trap. Do you think that's still sound advice? So
look, for me, the advice I used to give back then was they were emerging markets. You will learn more here in the city. The culture, the professionalism, the maturity of the markets here, the depth, the breadth of the markets, you'll learn a lot more. So when you graduate, you know nothing, right, folks? Sorry to say, it'll take you a good 5 years after you graduate to actually have learned something. I didn't know nothing once I graduated. I didn't know much more when I got my CA, but I actually hung around for a couple of years. And by the time I was a manager, I actually learned a bunch of stuff. So investing in yourself, what I said, that intellectual curiosity and that hard work, chasing that knowledge, chasing that excellence is critical. And I think to your question, Arib, that you have, at least back then, it was you're definitely going to do more. DIC didn't even exist.
Yeah.
And now DIC is the largest financial center in the whole Manassa region. Today, though, and I see a lot more aspiration amongst young people to do different types of careers. So I'm not sure if it's the same today. It's definitely improved considerably. And if you want to do Islamic finance, absolutely get to Malaysia, get to the GCC. Yeah, if that's your singular focus. But often then to do Islamic finance, do you understand finance first? And can you get a better grounding in that here? That's some of the questions you need to consider. But back then, for sure, that was the overarching kind of thought pattern. And potentially even during your time, but I do think things have improved in the last 5 years. And of course, the lifestyle's much better there. Who would not rather be sitting on Jumeirah Beach right now? Yeah, than in central London.
I hate Dubai. I hate Dubai with a passion, but that's a different story.
Well, I mean, what advice would you give students here in regards to making that pivot from London to the GCC? Because that's, you know, one of the main reasons why a lot of people are here, because they are, you know, they've fantasized about this career in the Middle East.
Just to add on to that, when is the right time as well? Because
I think to
all roads lead to Dubai.
no. So look, we're seeing Kestrel's opening up an office in Riyadh, probably Q1 next year, and we're seeing that they're saying Riyadh is where Dubai was 20 years ago. Right now, it's all change, it's all development. A lot of the firms there are stacking up their Islamic finance teams. They don't have a lot of work right now, but they're expecting a lot of work to come over the next decade or so. Law firms, Big Four, MBBs, they're really expecting a lot of work to come from that. It's really the Wild West out there. The infrastructure is really poor. Roads are really bad. No one can drive properly. The shopping malls are very different to what you get over in the UAE and all that. But I feel like there's a lot of money to be made, and the amount of investments and development that's happening there is incredible to see. I go back there every couple of months, and there's immediately a whole new ecosystem, a whole new part of the city that's been built. They've got like a Times Square thing that's been, and whatever your views about what's going on in Saudi, it's very interesting to see and to be a part of that. I think there's still some merit in getting a grad scheme or a company in the UK under your belt before going over there, because they respect the UK brand like anything over there. Right. Russell Group unis, especially Oxbridge, LSE, they love that. That definitely opens doors. But they love even more that, oh, you were part of EY London, Deloitte, PwC, Goldman's. That really, really helps. And you can go in quite young and go in at a much more senior position, is what I have been told. So that's what we're seeing.
So what was the question again?
It was, how would you advise students on making that pivot from London to the Middle East? And Samir said, when do you think the right time to make that changes?
Does everyone here want to move to the Middle East? Is that the thinking?
Can you raise your hand if you want to? Okay, we've got 3, 4, 5.
Come on, be honest, right?
Six, 7, 8. Why do you want to move to the Middle East?
Tax-free.
put your hand up.
Tax-free. Yeah, yourself? Yeah.
It's really what's surrounding a lot more for that Islamic culture. So you have to take back to say future generation.
Who else put their hand up? Someone from the back corner. Why would you want to move to the Middle East?
Everyone's shy now. But okay.
It's a genuine question, by the way. I just love to understand more. And it is a valid, I completely understand what you're saying. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back to stuff like that. And the Islamic culture in Europe is really nice, like all the women wear abayas and everything. So it's really easy to like dress modestly and things like that. The food, it's safe. Like,
Even the abayas are going. I was there at National Day. Saudi National Day is a crazy time. So yeah. Okay, so it sounds like a safety and a culture thing is what's motivating the most of it. Okay.
Let's flip the question. Who would put their hands up? Who wouldn't want to move to the Middle East? Why would that be?
I don't know, I just feel like the long term, it sounds like a stupid owner, like be one with nature. I feel like far like
There's nature over there.
rather move actually
Like Malaysia.
Bro, move,
Yeah.
move to Scotland. They just freeze. That's the only thing.
That's Southeast
Yep.
Asia would be nice to
Yeah.
like three areas. And I feel like I wanna go settle down eventually.
Okay.
How about you, bro? I think personally for me, I think the Gulf countries aren't really where I want to kind of raise my kids. So, and I think that's just more kind of education factor, the fact that like unlike the UK, everyone has to go to a private school so to actually get somewhere like.
Yeah.
And I think that type of culture is not something I want to kind of like enrich my child. But that's obviously not me saying, that's not me trying to go against the private school. Whatever. Yeah.
Okay. I think they're all valid points of view. Yeah, sorry.
You say, like, if you want to build something in Islamic finance and make it for people who aren't Muslim, can't really do that in a Muslim country. Probably have to do it in a non-Muslim country.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Absolutely. Malaysia introduced Islamic banking in the 80s. I think it was in the 80s. And now it's widespread adopted, right? It's the same in a lot of these countries. Where do Muslims have the greatest need in financial services today? It's in the West, right? So if you do want to make a difference from a career perspective, here's the right place to do it, or Europe or North America. You know?
I would say though, that said, the Middle East is one of the most exciting regions in the world. The capital, the development, the growth, and it'll go through its growing pains. It'll, have to reshape its identity and so on and so forth. But from the opportunity that presents, the culture of entrepreneurship, the spirit of advancement that's in that region, the vision that the rulers have set economically is second to none that I've seen anywhere, and it's hugely commendable. And definitely the safety is massive. It's normal to be a Muslim, so it's fine. There's no Farage there, so there's no issues around that. And it's very good for a family. So there is a lot to be said for the region. I think you mentioned the safety point earlier as well. So, but career-wise, remember, all I'd say to you is, after you graduate, whichever sector you want to go into, and I'm assuming you want to go into banking and finance, you might not want to go into banking, you might want to go into government, into policy. Yeah. Just bear in mind one thing. After you graduate, the first 3 to 5 years, and I'm sorry it's a long period of time, apologies for that, but guess what? Life goes really fast, right? Just go and be in the best place for your learning and your development. Yeah. And I remember distinctly, I was told one thing after I qualified as a CA, and indeed someone said it to me after I graduated. Yeah, you're not going to learn from the books anymore. You're going to learn from people. So surround yourself by the smartest, cleverest people. Yeah, and learn from them and learn from that environment. Even if you don't do much, trust me, you'll learn through osmosis, right? For sure. But be proactive and be in whichever geography that is where you can learn the best.
Perfect. So we've heard the word entrepreneurship quite a lot. How does someone, say, pursue such a path, say, that's directly in building your own company, or say a bit less indirectly in, say, changing the landscape for Islamic finance? What are skills to, say, develop now? What are skills to continue to develop? And how does one perhaps get a mindset for entrepreneurship?
So not everyone needs to or should be an entrepreneur. It's really, really hard. It's really stressful. It's a really lonely road. I think there's a real need for people to be doing what's called corporate entrepreneurship or corporate venture within large organizations. Barclays has their own fintech accelerator program. Lloyd's does the same. Nearly every big bank and wealth manager have their own venture capital and own what they call intrapreneurship teams, where you can do something within the comforts of a large organization. Of course, it means it's less likely it will probably come to fruition and things will move a lot more slowly. In terms of how to actually become entrepreneurial, you just have to do it. You just have to get out there and do it. There's no course in the world. You don't have to do an MBA. You don't have to do entrepreneurship. You don't have to go to business school. Everything is out there for free online to learn if you really, really want to. And the truth is, if you have a burning desire to do something, that's going to come out of you at some point. I had zero entrepreneurial ambition. My parents were highly against entrepreneurship, right? It was just go to a big company, do that, get a paycheck, get married, do all of this stuff. But I just felt like I'd been led into this position where I would regret it for the rest of my life. And I would think, what if I did not pursue it? And if it didn't work, I gave it 6 months. If it didn't work, we didn't raise any money, we didn't get any customers, then fine. It was a great experience. McKinsey loves hiring failed entrepreneurs, right? It's a fantastic experience to have. And it's something to do whilst you're young, you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage. You can afford to do this stuff. You can afford to take a career break to do it. But if it works and 90% of them don't, then you're in for like the ride of your life. So I don't know if that's an answer, but if you really want to do it, you'll probably know it already.
What are some examples of them online resources? So,
Y Combinator, YC, they're a big venture accelerator from Silicon Valley. All of their resources are available on YouTube, their podcasts. We went through Techstars, a similar type thing. We do a podcast ourselves, Muslim Money Talk, shameless plug, but do check it out. We have a lot of entrepreneurs from the Muslim ecosystem on there. So if you want that kind of entrepreneur type thing and it's like Muslim
I love
focus,
that thing.
there's a really cool, like some of our best entrepreneurship episodes. Abdurrahman, who founded Pillars, got over 1 million customers within 2 years. We go into the Kestrel journey. We have like people from Wahid, people from IFG, people from all, so you can really see that entrepreneurship. And everyone's story is different. Your story will be different as well.
So look, I don't classify myself as an entrepreneur, although I was corrected by someone once and said you're a social entrepreneur. So I have not gone down that journey that Arib and others have done in the sense of I've not set up a commercial business. I've never gone out there and set up a commercial business. I've advised on them at EY and so on and so forth. I ended up going down a route of just chasing my passion and purpose, and I used NGO vehicles to do that. Of course, a lot of similar challenges. And how do you do that? What do you do? How do you get the resources? How do you do, how do you deliver? How do you make the NGOs sustainable and so on and so forth? But our parameters were different than a commercial firm. Commercial firm will have to be profitable, have to raise capital, pre-seed, venture, etc., all of that, and have to demonstrate a return to shareholders, and will be measured against that because that's their mandate. But for me, it was easier, much easier, I think. Although maybe operationally just as potentially difficult. But I admired, Reeb and commercial entrepreneurs very much. But it's not a journey that I can say I've been on. Of course, bottom line is if you're going to go do something, right? There's a lovely quote I remember someone said, and he had left Deloitte, and he said, "You'll never discover the oceans until you lose sight of the shores." Yep. So this monthly paycheck that you get is actually a bit of a kind of drug, you get used to it and stuff. And you won't understand the taste of barakah until you've got very little in your bank account. You won't understand the power of your du'as when you go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, "Don't give me money. I don't need any money. I need good people. Yep. I need resources." Yep. And then you realize, wow, subhanAllah. And once you've experienced that in life and you've tasted that in life, there's nothing, at least for me in my today, that's comparable in that kind of
100%.
sense,
Very deep topic. But just to change the subject a little bit, this is quite a popular question from those that filled the Google form. And it was, how does Islamic finance interact with the broader movement around ESG and impact investing, and where do they sort of align, and where are they fundamentally different?
Okay. Shall I take that one, Arif?
Big question. Yeah.
So my day job's with the Global Ethical Finance Initiative. So we look at everything related to mainstream sustainability and ESG. Islamic finance, from a Jeffy lens, we see ethical finance. As a subset, we see faith-based finance, and a subset of that is Islamic finance. The similarities are often driven around the negative screening, so do no harm. So you won't invest or finance anything deemed harmful to society. If you look at the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm not sure if you're aware of them. Are you guys aware of the SDGs? Yeah, so 17 goals, how many targets? 169 targets that underpin them. If you look at the 17 goals, we've done a piece, done some work with Sharia scholars. There's a 90%, 95% congruence between that and Islam, principles of Islam, be it the Maqasid or otherwise. So there's a lot of similarities. The difference is, though, in conventional ESG, we have tension points. we have situations where a tobacco company has a higher sustainability rating than an EV Tesla. So we don't have a Maqasid-driven hierarchy that the fiqh, that are the legal underpinnings of Islam provide. So we don't have that. So we have tension points. The other big difference is, and this is a bit of an irony sitting here in London, is conventional sustainability does not look at financing structures. Yep. And if you think about it, it was toxic financial instruments that created the global financial crisis. Yeah. Whereas conventional ESG and sustainability, we don't look at financial instruments, the toxicity of them, and so on and so forth. Whereas in faith-based finance and Islamic finance, we do. So derivatives, and of course the biggest one, interest, riba, is seen as a toxic financial instrument. So that's some of the differences. But the intent underpinning intent is very similar. That said, Islamic finance as an industry, we have not led, although we're beginning to get more involved, but we did not lead the work on net zero. We are not leading globally on nature and biodiversity, where actually we should be if we look at our underpinning principles of our deen. So there is similarities and differences, and there are overlaps as well.
Yeah. So you've mentioned, say, some differences between, say, impact investing here and then Islamic finance. What opportunities actually exist? What can we learn, say, from the impact investing world and then translate that, say, to Islamic finance? Or could we perhaps see a world where all impact investing is Islamic finance, is Sharia compliant? That's how do we get there?
Is everyone familiar with how Islamic investing is done?
I'm going to give a one line.
Yeah, just a quick one. So right now there are Sharia standards. There's 5 major standards around the world. AOFI has one, FTSE, MSCI, all these major indices have Sharia standards, and they're broadly the same, slight differences. They look at 2 things. They look at how a business makes money, right? Is it coming from tobacco, alcohol, weapons, manufacturing? And number 2, they look at how much interest is in the accounts, interest-bearing investments, interest-bearing debt, and how much liquidity it has. And there are limits within which it can operate. What you might feel is missing from that is there is no ethical screener on that. So a company could be doing something, maybe they're using slave labor, or maybe they're using a sweatshop to create something, or maybe they're highly polluting in their activities, but they would still be seen as Sharia compliant. And we see this today. This was brought to the fore in the last 2 years, where if you look at the major Sharia indices operated by large banks and institutions, they're dominated by US tech players, many of whom were involved in the genocide in the Middle East, in Gaza. And these are things which our pensions are held in. So when I spoke to a scholar about this, he said that it's not that these standards don't consider the ethical, it's just that more of a consideration needs to be made for them in the way that it's implemented right now. And I think we're starting to see that. At Kestrel, we're implementing a boycott screener. So whether you're spending at, say, I don't know, a McDonald's or you invest in something, we can flag and say, by the way, this is on so-and-so boycott. This is why this is unethical. And here's an alternative for you instead. So that's one of our key features. I'm sure you've got lots to add.
No, I mean, I think that's probably because it looks so impact investing. Do people know what impact investing is? Because it actually has different connotations, right? So the traditional form of impact investing is not what you're against, not negative screening, but what you're for. Yep. So they will say, and there's a tension in the impact investing world as well between impact first and returns first. And that's where the philanthropists and others who drove impact the world versus the ones who come in as financial institutions. So what we're saying is you have to demonstrate a non-financial positive externality along with your financial returns. So impact investing, which is part of the broader sustainable finance world, it's different to your kind of negative screening or your just ESG rating, use of ESG for risk management or rating or sustainability rating. So the question itself needs to be kind of unpacked.
Segmented.
Yeah, segmented. Can Islamic finance expand towards an area of impact investing or sustainable finance? We believe yes. And we have spent a lot of time and effort doing the advocacy for this. We have located that conversation within the term tayyib. So in Quran, the term tayyib, halal and tayyibun, is mentioned 40 plus times. Yep. And tayyib being a principle, we take the term tayyib inspired. So a principle of, in addition to what's already Sharia compliant and halal, as has been successfully built by a lot of hard work by people in Malaysia, the Gulf, all around the world. So we have a Sharia compliant, a halal industry today. Can we augment that with a tayyib inspired mentality that says not only is this halal, but actually it looks at all these other additional features, some of which Ariba's just mentioned there. And that's where we see a complementary opportunity. But you must look at the bigger picture. So you guys are finance guys, yeah, right? So we used to have a saying, "Show me the money," right? Okay. Anyone heard that saying, "Show me the money"?
They still have that.
Yeah, you still have that, right? Okay. Wall Street movies, you know, and all that good stuff. But Jerry Maguire,
Jerry Maguire,
that one, "Show me the money." Right. How much money is the global Islamic finance industry worth to date? What is the size of it?
No one looked this up.
I think someone said 1 trillion. I don't know.
1 trillion?
I don't know why they said that.
Who gets the
Higher, higher,
Okay.
right?
Next answer, please. What do you think?
10 trillion.
Lower. All right, it's going to be a long evening. Roughly 5 trillion. Yep. Okay. What's the size of the global ethical finance or responsible investing markets alone? After outflows due to our friend in the US telling everyone that it's a hoax. Yeah. So following outflows and the backlash on ESG, what is the current size? It's around 30 to 34 trillion dollars. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to talk money, you want to play in a market which is bigger. Yeah. And to what Arif said earlier as well, we talked about the naming of Islamic finance. If you're going to use a term and you're going to minimize your market, then but all of this has commercial implications.
Yeah. Well, I suppose just staying on investing, I think one of the main questions that I got for this event as well was the fact that many students feel deterred from investing passively in their personal life because of the various sort of issues. What it was a little about, but now there's got this sort of boycott aspect as well. What advice would you give to these people beyond sort of, you know, using tools like Kestrel or like Boycott, etc.?
Yes, you said you're adding, say, boycott kind of screening. Just perhaps in your answer, how does that kind of work? Is it BDS? Is it looking at perhaps a different measurement?
Yeah, so we start off with BDS. We look at the United Nations reports as well. We look at their financial reports. There's 6 or so different factors that are brought into that. So we had to be cognizant that it's not just investments. People are looking at it's spending. And those two are very different things, right? So we had to like really increase the universe to account for that. But to your original question as to what should people consider when it comes to their investing, it is a really hard one. We don't have a huge range of Islamic investment funds or ETFs at the moment, and a lot of them kind of look and feel the same. They have the same basic constituents. The first thing I would say is a lot of people leap straight to investing without getting everything else right, the budgeting, saving for short-term goals, investing for long-term goals. People are just investing for the sake of making money rather than investing for a purpose. So that's one thing. The second thing is there are alternative products, everything, you know, you need to look into and judge for yourself. But I think there's a toss-up, and we're seeing now, I've heard tell that some of these large companies are starting to integrate some boycott-friendly type elements because non-Muslims care about this as well. Non-Muslims don't want to see children blown to bits on their TikTok feeds and on Instagram. It's not just a Muslim issue. And this is kind of forcing the point. And if we don't grab it by the reins right now, we're going to lose it, because the Islamic versus impact versus ethical thing is happening right now. Some of the largest wealth managers in the world are starting to relook at this. So I think it's happening, and that change is happening. And by the time you guys enter the workforce, you may see a much larger universe if Kestrel does its job right and everyone else does as well.
Nothing more to add to that. I think it's fascinating for me because obviously when we graduated, you know, we didn't have apps that you could just go and pick a stock. The information you've got, the access, Kestrel and other apps that will give you a filter of what is Sharia compliant is an amazing starting point. And then layering on top of that other factors as well. So I think you're just a lot more empowered and you're a lot more comfortable to take risk. So nothing really more to add to that. But of course, folks, I mean, don't be crazy, you know. I'm sorry to sound like a parent, but don't kind of blow your money away on high risk kind of wacko cryptos, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. and then you've probably got a student debt somewhere. It's not cheap to be here. You're already, got all of that. So, yeah, just be a bit wary of that. And I'd like to flip it to the other side, not just where you save. What I find now is there's a predominant culture of borrow and spend, whereas we grew up in a culture of save and spend, live within your means. So to keep that in mind as well, and as you manage your financial lifestyles going forward.
All this said talk about investing has brought back like an interview question to my mind. So I wanted to ask both of you. Say if you had £1 million of your own money to invest. I don't know if you ever got this question in an interview. Where would you put it in terms of allocations?
Who are you interviewing with? BlackRock. Nothing that we say here today is investment advice. So I just want to preface that, especially because this is being recorded. You want to go first?
You gotta think it through. What would I do with £1 million today? Well, probably, I think the best investment I could do is give it all to my wife, right? Provide me a bunch of freedom, probably for a year. If I give her 100 grand per month, right? So that'll be enough to provide me some freedom, and I can enjoy some peace and quiet, and she can enjoy a massive shopping spree, and everyone's happy,
Yeah. Anything different to that?
Yeah, I think genuinely, we're often really focused on alternatives, whether it's gold or Bitcoin or individual stock picking or putting it into ETFs. We've lost this idea of investing into our own communities. The brother who runs a car wash or a chicken shop, or the sister who's setting up some sort of online business or something like that. These guys need funding and they can't get funding from anywhere else. And often these have quite good returns. And I want to call back to Horace Irfan, and he's launching a spectacular product. It's not available to retail right now, but it's this idea of a promissory note. Do look it up, Cordoba Capital. And that's really what they're doing. All right, it's directing investment into real world businesses, real world assets. Maybe it's helping farmers to farm more ethical coffee beans in South America, or helping people to shear alpacas again in South America, or something like that, right? But real ethical businesses where you can see the impact to real people instead of this opaque financial bubble and system that has been created that we're taught is the only way to invest, and that's where your money has to go. So I want to see more of that. If it was £1 million for me today, I'd put it into Kestrel. But that's me. Yeah.
Do you foresee, say on the retail scale at least, systems where you can invest, say in smaller businesses emerging, say from the ethical or Islamic kind of things?
Can I just ask, out of interest, I'm very fascinated that young people, grads and students are asking about where to invest. How much money do you guys have?
Well, we have a bit here and there. I did an internship, so a bit to invest.
Right. But it's fascinating because when we were students, we were largely broke. We were investing in our lifestyle, having a good time.
From my internship at Deloitte, I blew all my money on a new suit and a computer, and that was it.
Was it a good suit?
Yeah, I don't fit in it anymore, but it was good. But no, it's a fair question. I think it's a fair question.
Do students have that much money, really, that they want to invest?
I'll see it like there's.
Or is it just that
where you can just even put in 20, 30 pounds compared to say 30 years ago?
Yeah,
you had to perhaps go somewhere external to just put that in the sum. So I'd
It's
say
a very low barrier to entry these days.
I think with the advent of tokenization, blockchain, and coins, which can be linked to real world assets, we're going to see more of that. You could get a coin linked to anything. You could get a stable coin linked to gold. You could get a stable coin linked to a business. You could get one linked to property. Right. And I think we're going to see more and more of that come about in the next 10 years. I think that's where the real tech revolution is coming. Both conventional and fintechs are focusing on that.
What's just off the top of your head, perhaps, what's your opinions on this cryptocurrency, blockchain, kind of tokenization of finance?
I focus on sustainability. A lot of the DeFi stuff goes beyond me, so I pass that to you.
I feel quite strongly about it. I feel like, number one, there are Sharia currencies. There are Sharia compliant cryptocurrencies. Our Sharia scholar Mufti Faraz Adam talks about this quite a lot. So you should check out Amana Advisors. I personally do some investing into crypto. I think there's an opportunity to get this really right, where we could actually move away from a fiat interest-based system if we were to adopt some sort of crypto, whether it's Bitcoin or something else, right? That is something where we could actually move towards. I don't think we're ready for it, but maybe your kids will be.
Well, I do want to leave some time for Q&A, so I'll just ask one final thing. I know we've touched on this quite a bit, but just to finish, what are the steps that we as the young Muslim Ummah should be making from now to allow for the best Islamic finance space in the future?
What are the steps that you
That
guys?
we as the young Muslim Ummah should be taking from now to allow for the best Islamic finance space in the future?
So look, I would say a few things. Number one, the concept of husnul dun, right? Okay, don't be negative. It's very easy to rip something apart. Yeah, I could probably rip apart your syllabus that you're being taught as well, if I really wanted to. Yeah, don't do that. Don't be negative. See, appreciate how we got to where we got to. Yeah, absolutely accept there are limitations, and as good academics, you need to understand that to be able to critique. But use your passion, use your sense of purpose, use your Sharia as your North Star to guide you to say, how can I build? How can I build? Find through this myriad of issues the one positive reason that we can take this forward. Yep. And whatever you do, build it, advance it for everyone in humanity, not just for your own group, your own faith, your own clique. The world is being divided in an us and them set. Yeah. We don't need to go down that way. Yeah. It's not us, kind of thing. Yeah. Take a broad approach. And one of the most defining features is what? Interest, isn't it? Right? We said that earlier, right? Interest, the ban on interest is one of the most defining features of Islamic finance. Well, sorry to tell you, my Muslims, colleagues and brothers and sisters, guess where the ban of interest started from? Hundreds of years before the Prophet ﷺ. Where? It's in the Christian tradition from the time of Isa alayhi salam.
Through the money lenders at the temple.
Interest, not usury. Interest was banned for 300 years up until the Franciscan period. We've done a lot of work with the Church of England, Church of Scotland on shared values. And you can look at the Edinburgh Finance Declaration to see a framework for that. So whatever you do, try and create something that works for everyone in society, regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background. And of course, brings people and planet alongside profit, not just as everything you will learn, financial markets, work to, risk-adjusted returns, profit maximization, Friedman economics is what you're going to be taught. Yeah. We'll actually read a bit more about Professor Tim Jackson, right? Read a bit more about Piketty's work, read about the Chicago School, read about the narrow banking approach. Yeah. And all of a sudden you'll turn around work of Positive Money, Ben Dyson as well. They've had to rewrite academic books because everything we thought about free markets operating actually never materialized in the way that it should have. And that's a quote, by the way, from Alan Greenspan after the global financial crisis. Or Lord Turner, who is the head of the FSA here, said much of banking is socially useless, right? So that's what I would advise.
I can't add much more to that. I would just say when people launch products, be it Kestrel, Fiverr, Wirehead, Offer, embrace them, try them out, right? When Malaysia first launched their Islamic banking, it wasn't perfect, but the community really embraced it. And now today they have a thriving system. So that's number one. Number two, again, get to as high a position as power in the institutions that you go to so you can affect change. We are living in a world where we are seen as the enemy. Many of you want to leave this country because of that. But I really feel we'll be doing ourselves and future generations and our parents and grandparents who came here a huge disservice were we to abandon where we are. And we can help this country and this community, Muslim and non-Muslim, through this industry. I really, really, really believe that. And it's the only people who can show them that other side are us. That's all I have to say on it.
Okay, we've not got that much time left, but I'll open up to Q&A if anyone has any.
My question is specific for you. I know you mentioned a bit about insurance and kind of its success in Malaysia. From my really basic understanding, I think Malaysia's introducing a couple, right? And my question to you really would be, how would we introduce something like that in, say, the UK to really, get people into get people insured properly and under Sharia compliant rules?
There's two ways. You could do it through the conventional mechanism, speaking to an insurer, linking it with a Sharia compliant pension product, which I know some people are looking at. The other way is more of like a shadow economy way, which we're seeing coming out of Saudi. There's a fantastic firm called Takadao. Check it. We did a podcast with them as well, where it's all on the blockchain, and it involves maybe 10 of you putting in 100 grand into a pot every year. There's £1 million in there. If one of you passes away, $1 million gets paid out. And trust is built on the blockchain. People are already doing this within Muslim communities and non-Muslim communities around the world. This system has existed. They're just making it, they're technifying it, they're putting it on this blockchain. So there's two ways. I think one which is less scary to the government and to the regulator is probably the conventional route. And we're seeing Malaysian players and Saudi players both trying to push their products in the market right now. So that will probably come first.
Also, just a quick follow-up. Obviously in the UK, you have to follow some rules with insurance, whether that be car or life. How would you say advise Muslims to pick up on insurance?
Look, I mean, you have to get car insurance. You can't drive a car without that. A lot of Muslims don't take life insurance, and I don't think there's a fatwa which says you can take life insurance. I don't know. No, for that. But car insurance, it's a necessity. So where you can avoid, but for necessity, you have to at the moment. So.
So does that sound fair for you to talk? My question is about how you mentioned if you want to go to the Middle East, we should sort of upskill ourselves in the UK. For me, my question is like, if like, let's say I was to go to Goldman Sachs or a bank that deals with interest, there's sort of that conflict between my team and then upskilling myself to potentially go to the Middle East. I feel like sometimes the ends don't justify the means.
Why do you have to work at Goldman Sachs?
I'm not sitting down.
No. You mean. Yeah.
So would you say like just work for an Islamic bank? Okay, well, what's your thought?
So look, first of all, you won't get a grad job in an Islamic bank in the UK, so just scratch that completely. It doesn't exist, right? Number one. Number two, this is my personal view. It's not a scholarly view or anything like that. The financial world is vast and it's complex. It's like medicine, yeah? A neurosurgeon is different to an ENT, different to a GP, different to radiologist, right? So there's parts of our financial system which are absolutely fine, and absolutely halal, right? Leasing, renting, compliance, all these functions are absolutely. So when you go into these banks or these institutions such as Goldman Sachs or any of the other kind of bulge bracket, it depends on which department you end up. First of all, you can't just say it's one or the other. Then the other thing is your niyat. Right? So if you say, I want to go into Goldman Sachs and become a derivatives trader, so I take derivatives knowledge and become an Islamic derivatives trader, well, guess what? That's not going to work because there's derivatives and Islamic finance are extremely restricted or limited. Yeah. So check your niyat and see what it is if you need to dip into the world, which is a bit more murky and gray area, right? And if it's very clearly you see there's something there that you can come out with and you want to extract and bring to the Islamic finance world, have a pathway for that, I would say, but proceed with great caution. But that does not take away from the huge, vast kind of masses of segments within financial services or professional services in the FS world arena that you can work in.
100% echo that. Moti Faraz, Adam, renowned scholar in finance, he is of the exact same opinion. There are many ancillary activities, be it consulting, advisory, compliance, which do not directly generate interest, and you can gain a lot of great skills from that. Someone I know quite well just started working at BlackRock. He found himself in a Sharia team here in London, facing with Saudis, and now they're launching Sharia products. Right? Yeah, very good, brother. So so mashallah. So there's plenty you can do. Yeah.
I'd like to add on to that. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'd say that's someone going into, say, these industries, say you're obligated from an Islamic perspective to do all the research required and make a decision from that way. If you want to really pursue something in that industry, you have the time now, please do the research. Who's next for a question? Sure.
mentioned a little bit about I need to ask you, really, for example, and how
Sorry, how blockchain is being used in the Middle East, and what was the second part? Yeah, I'll go back to Takadao, right? Because they're based in Saudi. They are an alternative for insurance. They can be used globally. They operate outside the regulated system because the regulator doesn't really know how to deal with them. But they've created a ledger. Individuals from around the world put in money into pots together, and they're an alternative to life insurance. So they've got a couple 100,000 people using them around the Middle East, but it's a global product. Like you or I could open an account with them today. So that one comes to mind. There's Facet, which is doing tokenized investing into gold. They have their own coins. Marhaba is doing a very similar thing. There's like a whole Web3 Islamic space that there's a whole hole you can go down. And they have real products. People are investing through it. People are insuring their homes through it. So yeah, take a look. Of course.
Next question. Anyone got anything?
how would you suggest going about working to for the specifically Islamic finance and working what departments or what kind of information you should run out to develop the skill set to go into this finance?
So the good news is that is a space that is growing rapidly and has been growing for the last few years. So a lot of the financial institutions, from the asset owners or asset managers, Scottish Widows, Aberdeen, even indeed BlackRock or ING, RBS, NatWest, all of these banks will have sustainability teams. NatWest will have well over 30, 40, maybe even 50 plus people across different divisions in sustainability. That could be people from calculating carbon, credits, right through to people who are doing the reporting or compliance under TCFD or whatever that is. You have sustainability teams who are embedded within the asset managers as well. So they'll sit and work alongside the analysts. So sometimes the analysts now are required to look at sustainability factors as well. Then you have the dedicated players who are just ethical players like Triodos Bank. They'll come out and they only do ethical finance. And you have impact funds, impact investors as well. And you have other asset managers who are just dedicated, focused on sustainability or as green. There's a huge amount. So you could do the E, which has moved beyond carbon and global warming to nature and biodiversity as well. You've got the S, human rights, within that as well. And G is a bit more better established. That's governance structures there. So you've got a massive space you can play in there with a huge amount of opportunity. Europe is leading in that space. Yes, there's a bit of a political pushback from the US, but regardless of that, it's a fascinating space. So I would just say, what interests you? Which part interests you? Is it the human rights bit? Is it climate? Is it what? And then specialize in that. So if it's the S, look at TISFD, look at everything that's happening in that space, how people are creating products. Like some of our friends at Martin Currie, owned by Franklin Templeton, created an S and ESG fund, Improving Society Fund is what it was called. So yeah, just pick your particular area and go down that space. It's you'll have a lot more job opportunities in that space than you will in Islamic finance for sure. I think it's also intellectually more challenging
For sure.
as well.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So let's start off. So a lot of solutions are actually just about people-based, not policy-based actions. Such as the best of the companies that have functions in society. Now, in terms of actual change in the world, there's a lot of political situations which countries, conflicts and tensions. How does that translate to actual change over generations? That can be tangible, but change the system.
So your question is, why would investing locally how would that affect world politics? Or
Politics is the changes how you careers.
Hmm.
Invested and that also has effects.
so
Most uses on values.
the example I always go to is when a masjid opens up in an area which is predominantly non-Muslim, do the non-Muslims like it or not? They usually don't like it, right? Why? Because it's really busy on a Friday, there's traffic, people are parking on their driveways, Eid is a nightmare, Ramadan's a nightmare. We don't do ourselves any favors. We are quite insular, whether we want to admit that or not. And I think if we can show that this solution, because Islam is the solution, and there are non-Muslims who understand that and know people who work in Islamic finance, some of them. And I think if we really want to show that as a community, we have to step up our game.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up here because we're a little bit over time. But Jazakallah khair to Omar, Arif, and Samir, of course, for their time and insights today. I'm sure it's been useful for everyone, especially myself. So if we can get around, of course, please.
Sorry, I get crashed.
Thank you everyone for coming. Jazakallah khair, and
Alhamdulillah.
may Allah allow you to take these learnings, these insights forward. Hopefully build a great startup or change as a social entrepreneur. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.